In the time after King Arthur, Ern's quest, the final spur. Ern, son of Prince Valor, was the very last of Arthur's knights. He was directed by Corticus, the only one, in addition to Percival, who knew Ern's secret, to act as rear commander during the retreat and evacuation of towns and villages. To Ern and his men befell the horrid duty of torching the homes. Ern, whose existence had been kept a secret by his own choice, as we have heard, was now the last knight. This almanac has had several last knights, but Ern is the last from Arthur's time, that is, the last to be knighted by King Arthur himself. As the last of the homes was torched, Ern gave his men their leave and their safety. A new war had started. He thought of the Viking crest on his tunic. He thought of Scandia's civil war when his royal family was turned out. And he had never forgotten the shame and fear when his grandfather was driven from Thule, as they called it then. He thought of his new mission. He thought of Maud. Suddenly, Ern's mount whinnies in fright. On instinct, Ern pivots in the saddle, striking in a broad arc. There were 3 Vikings after him. The first attacker falls from Ern's sword, but there were 2 more, one with an eager arrow ripe at the bow. Ern coaxes his mount with his legs and reins, and in selfless loyalty the animal rears up, stopping the arrow in its heart. Ern slips free of his stately warhorse as it conducts a dance of death between him and the bloodthirsty Vikings. Shielded now by the animal's heaving bulk, Ern draws an arrow from his quiver and lets it fly into the second attacker as the beast slumps in final agony.
Ern's mount whinnies in fright. On instinct, Ern pivots in the saddle, striking in a broad arc. There were 3 Viking after him. The first attacker falls from Ern's sword, but there were 2 more, one with an eager arrow right at the bow. And coaxes his mount with his legs and wings, and in selfless loyalty the animal rears up, stopping the arrow in its heart, and slips free of his stately warhorse as it conducts a stately dance of death between him and the bloodthirsty. Then now by the horse's heaving bulk, then draws an arrow from his quiver and lets it fly into the second attacker as the beast slumps in final agony.
One left. The 3rd Viking advances with whip and mace. The air sings as leather thongs entwine Ern's legs like vines. The Viking pulls hard, sending Prince Ern down into the dust that may be his final resting place. But as he pulls, Ern severs the whip with a sword that he has been careful not to drop. A surprised Viking hurtles backwards into the dirt. Ern is quickly upon him, and in a moment the foe lies still, his life cut short by Arthur's last knight.
The 3rd Viking advances with whip and mace. The air sings as leather thongs entwine. Ern's legs like vines, the Viking pulls hard, sending Prince Ern down into the dust that may be his final resting place. But as he pulls and severs the whip with his sword, a surprised Viking hurtles backwards into the dirt.
As the first Viking units pass by, Ern realizes that he has made it behind enemy lines, where he is caught between the Vikings and the wine-dark sea. But this was the purpose of his mission. He must climb the ridge that parallels the road, and so is spotted by the advancing Vikings. The Vikings recoil and then roar at the sight of Arthur's dreaded knight. A detail of 12 men is dispatched up the hill after Ern. Halfway up the slope, Ern removes his armor, since he cannot slay an army and needs speed of foot. He removes the armor quickly but calmly, as if danger were still far away. With the towns burned behind them, the remaining Viking units had to camp in the marshlands beside the road. There they awaited their baggage trains and began the hunt for Ern, from whom they would like to extract information. Ern climbed the hill quickly now, gaining on the heavily loaded pursuers. He came to an abandoned hut and picked up a bit of rope, some old rusty hooks, and a large piece of moth-eaten cloth to use as a night blanket. As he walked, he formulated several plans and thought deeply. Was this to be the end of his youth and laughter? To be hunted down like an animal in these woods? But Ern had an advantage over these 12 Vikings. These were his woods, not theirs. Also, he was a trained knight and one of Arthur's best. The first 3 Vikings met their maker in a deer trap that Ern had recovered and reset. This angered the remaining 9 to the point that they were no longer able to think clearly. So they split up, walking 10 yards apart, combing the woods impatiently. Ern waited behind a likely tree next to a path, and there a Viking met hard steel and died silently. Ern now stalked the pursuers. Walking silently like so much wind and moonlight, Ern surprised 3 more Vikings in similar fashion, but their cries of anguish were heard by the remaining 5 who came running. Ern's 3 remaining arrows found their mark, and the last 2 Vikings ran back with the story of horror of the woods. Ern rigged up the rope and string around his camp for an alarm system and slept soundly under his blanket and the stars. The next morning he discovered a partner who had been even quieter than he.
Maud.
Now you are mine.
And he fell into her embrace for a long time.
I've been looking for you so long, and now that I can finally have you after so many years of searching, I cannot, for I must do the knight's duty one last time.
Choose me or war.
Knights serve no particular person or nation. They serve but the good of mankind, and there will not be a good life for any of us, Maud. if we should lose this war. The king has given me a mission as a part of his war plan. A precarious plan, yes, but any would be in these grave times, so I must choose war.
You speak the Norseman's language, do you not?
You know that I do?
Then I know your plan. Godspeed, I shall be with you in your heart.
And I in yours.
And so Prince Ern made his lonely way to the coast, where he would impersonate a heathen Viking, as he did so long ago on the Isle of Man, where he was first smitten by the huntress Maud. Ern reached the coast a few miles down from the invasion site. He located a boat that could barely float and rowed blindly into the heathen Viking shore camp as the waters hungrily devoured the last splintered beams of his boat. So far, the ruse had worked. Ern fabricated a story of stormy seas, a story of shipwreck, one of few survivors, of his dedication to the Viking cause. For days they questioned him, but Ern withstood the inquiries. They saw that he was well-bred. This he could not hide. But after a week or so, their suspicions died away, and he became one with them, or so they thought.
At night I open up the heavens vault, my safety deposit box of valuable stars, one of whose plan contains all my wealth. Can really own a star? Yes, if it is one's favorite star, mine is Betelgeuse in Orion, a large dying red giant. The fourth planet contains unlimited amounts of gold, silver, platinum, diamonds, and many other rare crystals. And it's all mine now. I've chosen to leave my wealth right there. If I brought it here, someone might try. As he pulls and severs the whip with his sword, a surprise Viking hurtles backwards into the dirt, and in a moment the foe lies still. Set apart are men of clay statues, as if they were castle guards, and be sure to move them about from time to time. Hang out the king's flag as if I am there. Leave but one man to keep the fires going. The Viking storm the castle to conquer an army so scared that it has turned to stone and skeletons.
3 Vikings block his path. He turns to avoid them, but they follow him like vultures. Percival draws his feathered shafts against the bow, and the sting falls true to its mark. A deadly dart fells the second one. The power of the swinging sword remains, and it cracks the chest of the foe. The Viking sword is as dull as his wrist.
of magic as black as Merlin could make it. The whole sea was green fire and white foam with singing mermaids in it. The knights rode their way from one wave to another. On windy days, one can still see white horses lining the waves as wave surf in the wild, raging